All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Today we are diving deep into some really cool strategies for speaking English with more confidence.
Yeah, confidence is key, right?
Huge. And, I think we've all been there, right? Those moments where we hesitate or we get a little flustered trying to express ourselves.
Totally. Like, even as a language expert, there are times I stumble over my words or just completely blank.
Exactly. And I think it's so easy to get stuck in those moments and
Yeah.
let that fear hold us back.
Oh, absolutely. Fear can be a major roadblock when it comes to language learning.
It really can.
Yeah.
Which is why I was super excited to dig into this podcast, Speak English with Confidence.
Oh, yeah. I loved that one. Packed with such great advice.
Such good stuff. So for this deep dive, we're going to pull out some of those golden nuggets and, really unpack them.
Sounds good. Let's break it down.
Let's do it. One of the things that really jumped out at me right away was the emphasis on mindset.
Mindset. Oh, yeah, totally. It's all about how we approach learning and making mistakes.
Right. Because we all make mistakes. It's inevitable.
Right. Absolutely. It's part of the process for everyone, native speakers too.
For sure. But this podcast really challenges us to reframe those mistakes, not as failures, but as opportunities to grow.
Exactly. It's like every time we stumble, we're actually learning something.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
Right.
Instead of striving for this elusive perfection, which, let's be honest, doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's so important. Perfection is not the goal. It's all about progress.
Progress, yes. And I think that shift in perspective can be so freeing.
For sure. It opens us up to taking more risks, to experimenting with the language, and ultimately to becoming more fluent.
Makes sense. So speaking of taking action, another practical tip from the podcast was the idea of speaking English every single day.
Ah, consistency. That's where the magic happens.
Right. They suggest even just a few minutes each day can make a huge difference.
Totally agree. It doesn't have to be anything grand or formal.
Like, what are some examples?
Well, you could describe your day out loud, maybe narrate what you're doing as you're cooking, or even just have a conversation with yourself in the mirror.
Oh, talking to yourself. I do that all the time, but not always in English.
Well, there you go. There's an opportunity right there. Turn those inner monologues into English practice sessions.
I like it. And the podcast also talks about finding a language partner.
Oh, language partners are fantastic.
Yeah.
Having someone to practice with regularly can be so motivating and helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't have to be a formal tutor or anything, right? It could be a friend, a family member, even someone online.
Exactly. The key is just to have someone to bounce ideas off of, to have those real-life conversations with.
Absolutely. Okay, one technique that I was particularly intrigued by, and I know you're a big fan of this one too, is the shadowing technique.
Ah, shadowing. One of my favorites.
I've heard about it before, but I have to admit I'm still a little fuzzy on how it actually works.
Okay, so imagine you're listening to a native speaker, maybe on a podcast, a TV show, or an audiobook.
Okay, got it. I love podcasts.
Perfect. So as you're listening, you try to repeat what they're saying almost simultaneously, mimicking their pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm, everything.
Wow. So it's like you're becoming their shadow vocally.
Exactly. You're trying to blend in with their voice, to become one with the flow of their speech.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would be really helpful for developing that natural, authentic sounding fluency.
Absolutely. And the beauty of shadowing is it works on so many levels. It trains your ear to hear the nuances of English pronunciation. It gets your mouth muscles used to forming those sounds correctly. And it really helps with rhythm and intonation, which are so crucial for sounding natural.
That's amazing. It's like a workout for your entire speaking apparatus.
Exactly. And like any workout, the more you practice, the stronger you get.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk vocabulary. The podcast emphasizes learning words in context rather than just memorizing lists, which I think we can all relate to, right?
Ugh, vocabulary lists. Been there, done that, haven't we?
So many flashcards. I swear I used to spend hours drilling myself on vocabulary, but then I'd forget half of it the next day.
It's so true. It's like trying to cram puzzle pieces together without seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the podcast really stresses the importance of understanding how words are used in real-life situations, right?
Yes. Context is key. When we learn vocabulary through authentic content, like reading a book, watching a movie, or listening to a podcast, we see how those words fit into the flow of language, how they interact with other words, and how they convey meaning.
It's like suddenly those puzzle pieces start to make sense.
Exactly. And the podcast suggests focusing on themes or topics that you're genuinely interested in.
So like if you're passionate about cooking, You could learn vocabulary related to recipes, ingredients, cooking techniques, and so on.
Exactly. It makes the learning process so much more engaging and meaningful when it's connected to your passions.
I love that. Now on to a topic that I know a lot of people might find a little daunting, recording ourselves speaking English.
Ooh, yeah, I get it. It can be a bit nerve-wracking to listen to your own voice, but it's such a powerful tool.
The podcast really highlights how recording yourself can help you track your progress, identify areas for improvement, and get more comfortable with your own voice.
Totally. It's like having a personal language coach right in your pocket.
But I think a lot of us might be hesitant to hit that record button.
I know, it can feel a bit intimidating at first. But remember, the goal isn't to sound perfect. It's to become aware of your own patterns.
Right. So it's not about judging ourselves harshly. It's about noticing those little things like, oh, I tend to use filler words a lot, or oh, I'm not pronouncing this sound quite right.
Exactly. Once you're aware of those patterns, you can start working on them specifically.
That's so helpful. Okay, I have to share this inspiring story from the podcast about a woman named Maria.
Oh, Maria, her story is incredible.
Right. So Maria was working in a job where she needed to use English, but she was terrified to speak up. Really lacked confidence.
I can relate to that feeling for sure.
Right. But she decided to take action. She started practicing consistently, using some of the techniques we've been talking about, like shadowing and recording herself.
And she even started using English in small ways at work, like greeting colleagues, asking simple questions, gradually building up her confidence.
Exactly. And eventually she had to give a big presentation in English.
Oh, I remember that part. I was on the edge of my seat.
Me too. And guess what? She nailed it. All that practice and dedication paid off.
Maria's story is such a great example of how consistency, dedication, and believing in yourself can lead to amazing results.
It's so inspiring. And it really reinforces that confidence comes from action, right?
Absolutely. It's not something we're just born with. It's something we cultivate through practice and perseverance.
Love that. So if you're feeling inspired to boost your own English-speaking confidence, the podcast has a simple call to action. Choose one strategy from today's deep dive and start practicing today.
That's it. Just one small step. What resonates with you the most? Maybe it's shifting your mindset, committing to speaking every day, giving shadowing a try, or even just recording yourself for a few minutes.
There are so many paths to fluency and confidence. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once.
Exactly. Start small, be consistent, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure. Happy practicing, everyone.
Until next time.